There's so much, and we're all familiar with going to the home center and you buy a tool and they toss in really a throwaway blade. And some of the thing that makes a throwaway blade versus a keepable blade, and I'll just grab one of these right here. This right here is a alternating, it's an ATB blade, alternating tooth.
Top bevel.
Top bevel, that's it, alternating top bevel.
Right.
So, and this blade here.
And what does that mean, Ken?
Alternating top bevel?
Right.
That means, we're going to get to that in a second. Don't we have one of our nifty drawings?
Well, we don't really, but we can get into it now.
Okay. Alternating top bevel, really what that means is the blade itself, the tooth will be shaped this way on one, and on the next one it's shaped like that.
That's right.
So it goes back and forth.
Right.
And that's alternating
top
bevel. There we go. And there's also a high alternating top bevel, which is a variation. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Right. Primarily used for laminates.
But one of the things I wanted to point out, on a really good quality blade, one of the things you'll look for is the presence of a good amount of carbide. The cheap blades tend to give you very little carbide. More than likely, it tends to be a poor quality carbide, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, what makes carbide good or bad.
But they're really designed to be thrown away.
Exactly.
You know, if you go into, one of the hardware stores or what have you and gets the $9 blade or what have you, they're designed to cut through nails and staples and things like that, and you just toss them away.
Correct. Whereas a blade like this is designed to be sharpened multiple times.
Right.
So over and over. So this blade would certainly cost more. The benefit to it, though, is you're not going to be buying blades as often.
Right.
And you're going to get a consistent performer in your shop. And consistency in performance is probably almost one of the most critical components of a good blade to begin with.
It's good in anything.
That's correct. Another thing that you really wouldn't think that much about, but I think is incredibly humorous, is the arbor hole. The positioning of the arbor hole is critical. You don't want your blade to cut like this.
Okay, I would assume it needs to be in the
jigsaw
center.
action blade is not what you're after.
Right.
But I was amazed to find out, really just being off by hundredths of an inch on the placement of the arbor hole. Thousandths of an inch is just a frightful error.
And that causes what's called run out on the blade. So it kind of, like sometimes you get your tire on your car doing that,
Bobbleheads. I've seen bobbleheads do that too.
Yeah, there should be no run out.
Correct.
I think as a matter of fact, I think that on the Amana blade on their website, their maximum run out is 0.002. So it's maximum of 0.002, which is not much.
Correct.
I mean, that's the thickness of a hair, I think.
And especially, once again, where they talk this is so critical to the performance, it will stress your saw, it will stress the arbor on your saw motor. So it's a critical thing. Another thing that is kind of fascinating are these expansion slots. Right here. Nifty little expansion. See the expansion slot?
Looks like a little C in there.
Tell us what the expansion slot's for.
Actually, it's for, it's just that. It's expansion. When the blade runs and heats up, the blade is going to get larger and smaller in diameter by way of heat, and it allows the blade to expand without distorting, because if it distorts, it's not going to cut properly.
Now,
tell them what's cool about an expansion slot.
One of the things I learned, and if you could hold a different blade up.
Here, let me look at, we'll just grab a Festool blade. This one.
Okay, right under there.
Okay.
Is a good example.
We're talking about teeth, by the way.
Originally, but we've already gone past that point because we got to keep moving. Right under here.
We won't worry about these. We were going to have nice pictures up here for you, but anyway, this expansion slot is on a blade by Popular Tools, and if you can see, they're completely different, and some of them end with a hole, and some of them don't, and some of them are shaped like a C, and this one's got a squiggly in it.
And they're cut by lasers.
Right.
Why are they different?
I don't know. Could it be a signature of the manufacturer, possibly?
That is something I found out. Every manufacturer tends to cut a different configuration, slightly unique to that manufacturer. There's no benefit to it. There's not like one is better than another, which was my thought. If this saw does it like that, it's got to be better than another. But even within a manufacturer, if I can hold one of these up and you can show.
Now, these are two different as well. Now, I'm just wondering if these are made by two different companies for Festool, possibly.
Could be.
And if that were true, then that would really pinpoint the fact that these are a signature for each manufacturer. But anyway, they actually just perform the expansion.
Correct. They allow the blade to heat up without beginning to warp or distort, and that's very critical. Now, another nice thing that's added to the saw that helps in its performance is the size of the gullet, right in here.
Right.
Now, we have a gullet of one size here. If you could just hold this here, and we have another gullet here.
Quite a bit of difference in size.
But the gullet is there for only one purpose, and that's to
Allow further chip removal.
handling debris during the
Right.
cut. The larger the gullet, the better able it is to handle large amounts of debris or generate a faster cut.
So would necessarily a larger gullet denote a more coarse cut?
A rougher,
rougher cut.
faster cut.
Okay.
A smaller gullet would be a much finer, cleaner, slower cut.
Okay.
But typically the presence of more and smaller gullets means you've got a blade with more teeth.
Teeth. Speaking of teeth, why does one blade have more teeth than another?
I don't know. Why does one blade have more teeth than another?
Well, a lot of people think that more teeth is better, but you have to understand that the relationship between the number of teeth and the diameter and the feed rate are really critical. In other words, if you have a blade with 20 teeth or 24 teeth, okay, and you can push it through at a rate that gives you a good clean cut, it's much different than having a blade with twice as many teeth that you push through at the same rate. What happens is like on an 80 tooth blade, this is a 60 I believe, but on an 80 tooth blade in solid surface, it'll give you a nice smooth cut, but what it's actually doing is grinding, because you actually can't push it fast enough for the blades to evacuate the material properly. So it's like a grinder in there. So an 80 tooth blade is not necessarily as good for a material like solid surface as a 60 or a 40 tooth. A 40 tooth can rough it out without any problem at all. A 60 tooth will give you a nice clean cut, but an 80 tooth will actually, I think, cause more damage to the blade because it's overheating, it's not removing the material properly.
We have
So
a
it's one
question.
thing-
Somebody wants to know, how much heat should you expect a saw blade to generate? Is not too much heat a sign of a dull blade?
Well, not necessarily a dull blade. It could be a blade that doesn't have enough side clearance, wasn't manufactured properly. Yes, as they do get dull, they will generate more heat, and you'll notice that in the cut and what have you. And I'm sure you have, as well as I, have pushed the blade to where it looks like you're having a barbecue, but you need to get through that last piece.
That's right. The blade
You know,
usually turns black at that
That's
point.
right, exactly.
And-
And remember, a dull blade is a very dangerous blade. You want to make sure that your blades are sharp. I cut my thumb down to the bone one time, and I happened to mention to the surgeon that I had just put a brand new blade on the saw, and he said that probably was the best thing I could have done because it cut fast and clean, where a dull blade, if it grabs your thumb or anything else, could just chew it up.
And once again, once your blade does begin to discolor, you've probably ruined it.
Right.
You've probably destroyed it, so it needs to be disposed of.